The California tour, Greg.
Making the rounds.
Oh, baby. This is brought to you by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. You go to naild.org if you want to join us, our wonderful association. We've been around, 42, 43 years now?
Yeah, something like that.
Deep history in lighting, man.
Long enough to matter and here for the long run, for sure.
That's right. So we're here with Tim from LEDlightsourceco.com.
That's the right address. We go by LED Light Source.
LED Light Source. So how many years you been in the game? Company called LED Light Source. Can't be that long, though.
Well, 2013.
Okay.
So we were lucky with the name.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what got you into it?
Came out of the construction industry, building custom homes, and was always part of the electrical portion of it. Always liked the lighting portion of it. And when they discovered how to make LED lights go green and got all the full spectrum, I decided it was time to jump from construction and get into the lighting biz.
You weren't building those 25,000 square foot homes we were talking about in the last one, were you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Those are some monsters. I don't know if it's a competitor of yours or just colleagues, City Lights in San Fran. You ever heard of those guys?
Sure.
So they're talking about 50,000 square foot homes.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. I've seen a few of those, especially around here. The money's here, and they want to just buy and build bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's crazy.
God bless them.
Yep. So you got involved after your build in construction. You liked what LED was doing. And what was the moment where you said, you know what, I'm going to change gears?
Well, it was actually just after the downturn in the financial the problem that we ran into. The Great Recession.
Yeah.
And we ran into that here a few years later. We were building and flipping big homes, and I decided that this was no longer the business for me. And at the time, my building partner said, let's get into the lighting biz, and we jumped into it. And at that point, there was rebates from PG&E that we could basically give everybody free lights, and we thought this was great. So
on the last live stream, I got to get my own mic in front of my face here. On the last live stream, I stood up and there's been rebates in Ontario since 2003. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I stood up and I said, my name is Michael and I'm a rebate addict. Okay. So, now I've been told by City Lights that the rebates have kind of evaporated a little bit.
Yeah.
You've transitioned away from them.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, fortunately, when I got into the business, somebody said, don't get into the rebate business. Use it as a tool, but don't use it as a business model. And of course, you say you're a rebate addict, and everybody said, "Oh, yeah, you're not going to become an addict." Well, we became an addict, and there was something in this area called panel mania, and the panels. Basically, the panels make really good margins.
So the rebate was $100 plus or something like that.
Yeah, and as soon as it became $100 plus, we had vendors selling us panels for just ridiculously low prices.
Sure.
And we thought this was great. But then when you jumped into it and people didn't pay their
bills,
race
to the bottom.
It was a race to the bottom. And it was at that point that I said, I'm out of the rebate business.
Yeah, sure.
And I discovered that the property managers, facility directors, they didn't want anything to do with it either. It just became a mess quickly.
Why was that? Was it because they weren't paying the rebates? Was it because there was too much competition in the space? What was it?
Well, at one point, the utility company owed us in excess of $500,000.
Oh.
And for a company my size, that was a ticket we couldn't hang on to. And they told us that this was not going to work for us. And after a while, everybody was doing it, and
that's a lot of money for any business, actually.
Yeah. Unless you're Fortune 500.
No, but even then,
Yeah.
Even then, like I don't know any company that spends $500 or it doesn't. I mean,
doesn't notice 500,000.
Yeah, like okay, for example, every time we say, "Hey, do you want to be a member of Nailed?"
Mhm.
Someone's like, "Well, I don't know how. My last membership at the other association was $6,000 a year. No, it's $695." Most people say, "You know what? Okay, that's not a big deal. I don't care if it's under $1,000."
Right.
I don't know any company that scoffs at $500,000, man. Especially U.S. I'm Canadian, so that's like $10 million Canadian.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of scratch, man. And so you're bankrolling the utility. And I've been in the same situation where I've had utilities 6 months, 7 months. And sometimes what we would do is we would tell the customer that when you get the rebate, you can give it to us.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
Exactly.
I got myself into a little bit more than $500,000 of that. And then the utility said, well, no, the customer has to pay first before we give them the rebate. So I had to go around and do check swaps with everybody. Here's a check, a certified check for $45,000. Now you give me a check back for $45,000. Then we're going to release the rebate.
Right.
I had to do that for like 115 customers in all in one utility.
Wow.
Because the guy started to turn the screws on me.
Yep.
And he's like, well, this is fraud. I said, no, the fixtures were replaced.
They're in.
Like there was 400-watt metal halide there, and there's no longer 400-watt metal halide there. The guy didn't have the money, and so I came up with this scheme to give everybody free fixtures under your program. And you're saying because they didn't write me a check for it that they're not applying for it? He's like, yep, sorry, man, that's the way it's got to be. So I went around with certified checks to everybody, and I handed out money to everybody and waited for them to give it back to me. Everybody gave it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you were smarter than the average bear, because so many people in my industry, they couldn't make that happen, and they started scrambling and picking up jobs at installing electrical, and it just became a big mess. And there was no longevity to that. And after talking to the head guys at PG&E, they said, yeah, and guess what? We're not going to keep servicing these rebates. They're going to go away. Which makes sense, because after a while, you don't need to incentivize.
Well, California's legislated away their light bulbs as opposed to incenting. So Ontario's done a little bit of legislation. Minnesota has no legislation related to light bulbs, correct?
Correct.
Right. So you can sell any light bulb you want in Minnesota. Yes. Right. So Minnesota's tactic is to, and I'm not sure which one's better. So Minnesota's tactic is to incentivize the switch. And I think California switched to we're just going to make those fixtures illegal in California.
Yes. Well,
Title 24 or whatever it's called.
Title 24, but alongside of that, the technology was moving so quickly that people are going to be gravitating towards the dimming bulbs and the high CRIs, and so there was a little bit of back and forth there. I mean, I had a problem because I was stuck with a bunch of bulbs that couldn't be rebated because there was no. They didn't qualify for rebates.
You mean this is a DLC issue?
Yeah, well, it was a DLC issue that just
they're sunsetted off their list or whatever.
Right, it came off their list, and all of a sudden we had inventory, and we were stuck with these things that we couldn't rebate, and so we had to go out, and even if we sold them at $2 a bulb, people go, well, why do I do that? I can get them at 20 cents a bulb after my rebate.
Yeah, sure.
So. It was just an unpredictable market, and so we decided that our best bet was to go in, and instead of retrofitting, we were going in and we're going to redesign. So our big push to customers was that we're going to, you as a customer, we're going to redesign. We're going to help you redesign your space. And yeah, you might not get the rebate, but the rebates aren't that much of the total nut anyway.
So you're selling lighting, not rebates.
Well, we're selling lighting, and we're selling our services at design, because when it got right down to it, the facility managers and the people, our customers that had changed over the course of the last 6 years to the contractors and the developers and the property managers and the facility, they needed people like us to explain to them how technology was changing. Because, a long time ago, us baby boomers, you would go out and buy fluorescent.
I'm Gen X.
Okay, well, so you're.
I'm
Gen older X than you. So
I'm right on the edge. I don't know which one I am.
Well, the baby boomers remember the time, and
65.
Then a lot of the Gen Xers also remember the time of how easy it was to go out and purchase lights.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I have I've been in the business. I've been in the business since 2000. 19 years.
Okay.
Right. So I've been in the lighting game. I know pre-LED, and I know incentives pre-LED. Mm-hmm. I know no incentives. I know incentives without LED, like high efficiency fluorescent, and I know post-LED and incentives. So I have a pretty good scope on it. So I mean there is a generational gap where I think there's there's a lot of people in lighting now that know nothing but LED. That would be you in a sense. That's you don't have a deep history in lighting pre-LED, do you?
Well, it came from the construction standpoint.
Right.
So when I was
yes.
when I was sourcing lights, I knew what I needed for the homes, and I knew that with form factors there was a huge amount of difference. But when it came down to lumen output and energy used, very narrow.
Do you feel that knowing the legacy lighting is important? Like knowing what the past was to now is important in your show?
It's important insofar as how to service your customer, because what we're finding is the facility managers, the baby boomers, and the Gen Xers like you, they remember. But now when I walk into these facility managers, they say, well, it was easy to buy fluorescence and HID, but now I have to think about controls because of the regulation. I have to think about the energy and, well, what's a good value on a driver, and what is an L70, and so how do I deal with all these new things? Plus, now that the price compression has happened, I mean, when I got in, tubes were $60 a tube.
Sure.
And now I get them for $2 a tube.
Yeah, sure.
And so everybody said, oh yeah, there'll be a 10x compression, but no, it was more like 50x compression.
Yeah, sure.
And so now all of this stuff that's becoming commodities, and then you have to sort of separate that from the spec fixtures, and you have to tailor it to your customer, because the customer is like, well, what do I do with all my controls, and what do I do with Title 24, and how do I value the drivers, and what's important in my lighting design, and how does that affect my customer and my application? And so in the industrial world, you'd put up a bunch of high bays, before LED, but now it's all about controls and how it affects your customer, and if your customer is over 65 years old, and how does it affect his work product, and
Sure.
And now you're getting into circadian rhythms, and so do we go in and do we buy the new circadian lights that are out there?
Oh man,
and the redundant drivers. And so when we go in, it's not so much about the lighting, it's more about the where the person is. Are they in an industrial setting?
So you're adopting your approach based on what you feel is the best outcome for the customer.
Yes, and what I had to do is I had to zero in on a much smaller customer base.
Okay.
Because I can't service well the hotel person if I'm doing mostly industrial.
Sure.
Because how you service an industrial person who owns a big industrial complex is a lot different than how you service a hotel.
Agree.
I mean, the hotel is a lot of spec, a lot of expensive product, and you have to get into all sorts of regulation, at least here in California.
Now, when you talked about redesign, I hear that term thrown around, and some people's definition of redesign is, I took that fixture out and I put this fixture in.
that's in my book. That's a retrofit.
Exactly, mine too. But so when you're talking, I mean,
that's a one-for-one replacement. I don't know if it's a retrofit. A retrofit, you got to use that existing body.
People again, there's another term. Retrofit can to me is
there's definitely crossover.
Yeah, sure. There's nuance and jargon, and the jargon can mean different things to different people, I think.
Well, and that goes to helping your customer.
Sure.
If you go in there and you start talking about lumen output and L70 and IP and all retrofit versus, they're going to pull their hair out and go, well, just help me. Because what you just said doesn't help me.
You just helped me, because I'm pretty confused too. I've done over 100 podcasts and I'm still need help too.
Yeah,
because it changes so fast, this business.
Well, and as soon as we went through that compression time,
it's a good word.
Between 2014 and I'd say to 16, where I would literally have a contract with somebody to buy a $36 tube, and a week later they're coming back to me going, "Why can I get these? Well, how come I price them? I can get them now for $26."
Yeah, sure, of course.
Well, because a week went by.
Right, you waited a week.
It's like cell phones. I mean, the cell phone price compression went.
It was Moore's law. So that's what it would increase in power and decrease in cost, and at a I don't know if exponential is the right rate or whatever, but whatever it is, and that happened to LED lighting for sure.
Right.
So when going back to the redesign, so you're talking, you actually move fixtures, you repurpose, you replace them into different locations, different lights?
Well, we start
Controls.
with a redesign by starting on what they actually do
Okay.
in a facility.
Don't
If
look
it-
up, you look down.
Yeah, and what is it that you're trying to get done? If you're walking through a hallway and you're trying to impress somebody, then that's one type of redesign. But
Sure.
if you're dealing with, like the other day, I was at a place that is an anodizer, and they anodize parts for the U.S. government,
Mhm.
and they are working under T12 lights, and half of them are burnt out.
What's
And-
that customer name?
Sorry, it's already done.
Ah.
But the what they were doing is they'd have these work pods, and over the work pods there was a cover to protect them from the fluorescence, and then underneath they had these LED bulbs,
Beautiful.
and the LED bulbs were PAR bulbs, which were creating these shadows on the work desk. And I said,
Ooh.
well, if you're gonna the cheap way is just go with a bulb that will light the whole desk. And so they didn't know this. They, they're experts at anodizing. And so I screwed in a few light bulbs, and they said, oh, this is great. Can we do better? So that's just an example of going in and saying, okay, what does the customer need? What's the application? Let's start from there, and then build up from there. That's a redesign.
So do you prefer, so we talked about the panels, you talked about LED tubes, and oftentimes on our show, we go back and forth on the value of being able to replace that light bulb or even upgrade that light bulb to a better LED tube. So for example, if you did LED tubes in 2013, you could have upgraded twice or 3 times until now, and you would have saved energy and had better performance and more light, right? Or, buying that purpose-built fixture with the driver and the LED array inside and connecting it to controls. And so there's like this, I have a hard time between choosing whether I want to do modular, where someone can change a light bulb, or whether I'm going to go purpose-built. And so for me, generally, when I can, I will go modular on the inside of the building, and I have a hard time doing that outside, so it's purpose-built outside. But then there's differences in between them. That it seems to be a personal thing. Where are you at with that modular versus purpose-built argument?
Generally, we go in and pre-qualify the client. I mean, if the client is all about energy savings and saving money, it'll be modular, because obviously the tubes now are less expensive than the panels, and you go up from there. So we start with the client and said, what's your biggest goal here? Because a lot of people don't like to admit it, but they couldn't give a damn about saving energy. It's just about saving cost. And saving cost on the upfront. And as you know, in 14, that was the biggest cost, is upfront. But we had to convince them that it was better long term. And so if the person says, I'm going to be out of here, well, this company that did the anodizing, we're building a whole building in a year, and it should be done in a year. So get me some good light, but keep it low, because I'm not going to be here. So that goes to part of the pre-qualifying the people. Well, if you're under a lease and you want to impress the living daylights out of people who are coming in, then I can get you panels, but it's going to cost you more. And how much do you want to spend if you're only going to be here for a year? So the pre-qualification and really diving down with the customer and making it simple for them, and because a lot of times they don't know. I don't know what better light is going to get.
So you, in a sense, you're not really selling lights. You're selling your knowledge in a way.
We're more specifiers.
So you're not, but you're not actually. You don't actually charge for your specification services, though, do you? Or do you?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the project.
Okay. So sometimes you will, sometimes you won't.
Yeah. I mean,
but you're always making money on the lights when you sell them.
Yeah. Well, you have to do that.
But one thing I noticed
sometimes feels like we give them away. But
one thing I noticed is you guys don't stock anything here. Is that correct, or is there a warehouse we're missing?
We were in the inventory business, and so we do have a warehouse that's filled with older lights.
Okay.
And we basically give them away. We're the fire victims. We tell them, what do you need? And we have 10 cases of A19 LED bulbs that are 2 years old, and some of them are dimmable and some of them are non-dimmable. Some of these people need them, and they come to us and they say, well, we need these bulbs. So a lot of times we'll sell them at a very, very low rate, or we'll just give them to people who need them. We give them to churches, and a lot of times, like,
stop doing that. I sell churches.
We have a closet here that's filled with just overstock from jobs that we had a big dealership, and they changed the whole thing, and we had $10,000 worth of lights that they just didn't want to use, and they were spec lights. They were very very high spec, and they ended up in our closet. And
so you're just ordering on a per project basis right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. In terms of when the shift came, when the rebates left, basically, did you see a lot of competition go away?
Yes. It ruined a lot of people because they were in the rebate business.
Yeah.
And when they didn't collect those business, they didn't. I mean, PG&E got behind for a lot of different reasons. And like I said, sometimes they were behind with us for 4 or 5 months, and that hurt a lot of people.
Do you think they'll ever come back? Letting rebates in California?
That's a good question. I had a conversation with a agency the other day, and they said that they thought that they would start coming back. I don't really believe it, because I've seen an uptick in people who just come to us and they don't even mention rebates anymore.
Would you prefer them to stay away?
No, I think rebates. I think the rebates by third party would do a much better job.
So not done by the utility.
Right.
Like an outsourced company that manages the process.
In the rebate business, the utility companies, they, for whatever reason, they can't run it as a business.
The problem with rebates is this, okay, with utility companies. So, and this is I don't know if every rebate program works like this, but I know that most of them do. So most of them are rate based. So what happens is there's no making free money. Basically, the utility is paying you to use less of the product they sell. Right. So like, why would someone pay you to use less of what they sell? Well, because they get to charge everybody else more for what they're selling. That's how it works.
For the most part, California's a little different.
Maybe California is always a little different, and we've talked a lot about California on the last podcast, the Republic of California, you know. But I mean, and you know what? Californians pay a price for that. I don't think they pay a price. They pay the early adopter price, and Ontario does in Canada too. Like where it's like we're the leaders, so we do everything first, and we have all clean energy in Ontario, but we pay the most for it.
Yeah, well,
California's in that boat a lot, man. Yeah,
California, Hawaii. There's very, very high rates, and they're going to get higher. I mean, there's new rates coming in that I understand, and my customers are coming back to us and saying, "Hey, we got to do something," because the big customers are, and then that's back to your question. Is I think where the rebates are going to come back are with these really big customers. I mean, some of my customers are paying $100,000 a month.
What is a KW rate here?
Well, it depends, but it ranges.
Average, whatever.
It's we're usually somewhere between 15 to 20.
Okay,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Hawaii's up to 30 something.
Yeah, Hawaii's an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, though.
So it's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, that's like if you go to the Bahamas, it's like 40 cents a kilowatt hour too, or whatever.
So
it's expensive,
crazy,
right?
Crazy.
But yeah.
And then you go to the Midwest, and we deal with 7-8 cents.
Yeah, we're about 10 and 10-12 in Minnesota.
They couldn't care. And but these really big companies that pay a really big price per month, they're going to need to have some subsidies come back.
Do you still do proposals that show paybacks then? I assume you just deleted the rebate line from your proposal.
Yeah, I mean, because there's still third-party companies that still do it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, and so if it's worthwhile, we'll definitely engage them, and they usually send out a person to say, okay, this is how we're going to calculate it, because then they have to coordinate with PG&E, and some of those guys are going away too. But the really high efficient products that they want you to sell, there's still some decent rebates out there.
What are you seeing as an acceptable payback without a rebate? What are people?
That's a good question.
Around here, we shoot for less than 3 years.
Okay, still similar,
right. Yeah, it's about right. Yeah. You can do that without a rebate?
Well, you got 15-20 cents at KW.
Yeah, maybe you can. US dollars, not Canadian dollars.
Not Canadian.
Come on, man, that's like $1 million cents an hour.
And now with the controls, that's where the other complicating factor is when we go in and we talk to these customers.
How do you assess those control values? It's a tough job, man.
Well, we pull the property manager. We're doing a job down in Fremont, and it's pretty specific with the office buildings, because They get there at 7 and they leave at 6. Yeah, there's janitors there afterwards, but so we can drill down on the burn rates pretty well. And we also spend a lot of time dealing with the traffic flow. Which offices are using more. We know the CEO is only there for half the time that everybody else is there, and so we get pretty close. And now that with the new controls and it works pretty well, because now they're really starting to make sense with the controls. When somebody walks into the room, the lights come up and the lights go down, and it's not this weird thing where you're waving your arms around because the lights are always
Commissioned, right?
Yeah.
Do you have to have controls in all of your projects?
Oh, anybody who's going for Title 24, yeah.
And most people are here?
Well, it's funny because I'll talk to some people and they say, well, we're not going to pull a permit. We're not going to do Title 24. We don't want to get involved with that. That's too much cost. But then when I actually spec the product and they say, yeah, okay, this is good, we want to go forward. And I say, oh, by the way, it's Title 24 compliant. So you pass Title 24 just by going with this product. So instead of selling them on Title 24, we sell them on their application and how much better it is for them. And they're usually buyers. People hate being buyers because they have to.
Californians kind of like California. California gets a lot of criticism from outside of California.
Well, the electricians here they're pulling their hair out.
Okay.
Because they have to go in and they say, well, we have to put this in because it's Title 24. And so the customer get a lot of pushback. But if you go in your customer base and you say, okay, you need this type of controls to actually run your business, people understand that.
What % of your projects have controls?
The guess is probably about 60 to 70%.
It's way higher than us.
Yeah, it's higher than me too. Yeah. It's interesting because I'll say this. Prior to LED, when the fluorescent boom was coming to its close, because I sold a lot of high bay fluorescents until 2015. I was still selling high bay fluorescents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
because they had a massive rebate for high bay fluorescents, and I liked them, and I just kept going with high bays.
Yeah.
T8, T5, HO. Come on, baby, give me that. I love those.
Don't get into the rebate business.
Come on, man. But I'll tell you this. So I did a lot of work with when we were getting good. We were doing a lot of, because with fluorescent, you weren't going so low on energy that the control still made sense.
Right.
So we were speccing a lot of controls, like doing a lot of control work in rack aisles and parking garages and all this. And I really put some really swanky systems together for parking garage lighting system controls and this, and really well commissioned. Like people would come into the lobby of the parking garage. There'd be a scout sensor there that would turn the lights on that level for them. And, really, we got really good with it. And, what I noticed was that when I would do a factory up with controls where the warehouse and the cross dock and the lights in the rack aisle were perfectly calibrated, so maybe a foot in the rack aisle, you'd go in, the lights would come on 1/3 way down the rack aisle, and then you go a little bit down, then the next third would come on. We got really, really good with it. And what I noticed was all the energy savings came from the changing on the fixtures. Okay, from the 450 watt down to the 232 watt T8 or whatever we were doing.
Right.
But man, a well-commissioned control system gives people the feeling of energy efficiency.
Right.
Like when that CEO, we did this one factory that they had 5 factories in Toronto. They made envelopes actually. This company made envelopes, and they brought the CEO from Montreal, and they did a tour, and they were walking by the rack aisles, and all the lights were off, and then he would turn in. He was like, the CEO was going like this in the rack aisle, and he was like, what didn't come on? He would go in, and boom, they would come on. And it really, really gave people the feeling of energy efficiency.
Yep.
A well-commissioned control system really does that. The problem is not that many people know how to commission them properly.
Right. And the companies are making it more and more complicated.
And not only that, with the energy so low with the LEDs, the payback's longer and longer.
Yep.
And the IoT stuff is more expensive.
Yep.
I did this one job. We had the guy wanted to look at a Bluetooth mesh network for the fixtures. It almost tripled the price of the job.
Yep. But that price is coming down a lot too.
Like it went from $300,000 to like $700,000 for this job.
Right. Well, we just did a job that where all the controls are within each fixture, and it's no more you need a control system. It's all just controlling each light with your phone.
Mm.
and that's where all the big companies are going to.
I haven't jumped into that pool yet.
The big guys have it pretty well down. It's impressive. And again, it goes back to the customer saying, "Wow, this is really cool. I got my money's worth." It doesn't really make that much difference on the energy savings unless you're running 24/7.
Yeah.
If you're doing 24/7 where the lights are on all the time and it's a big warehouse and you get people running, that's where the big money pays off. And the other really impressive place that we see controls coming in is when is with all the new LED tape. They're getting really tricked with all the controls, and so all
on the tape.
Where are you putting it all?
Come on, man. Yeah, tell me where this LED tape's going.
I have it in my kid's bedroom on the floor. Where do you have it?
All the restaurants. We have two jobs. We have three jobs. The restaurants.
Some people sell a lot of tape, bro.
I don't.
I know.
That's it.
A
Okay,
lot
restaurants.
of tape.
Okay.
And we just did a hotel with all the headboards have tape on them.
Nice.
And the trick there again is, okay, how are we going to service all this stuff? When something goes out, it's going to look funky that one tape is out. Here's the romantic night coming, and they got the customers complaining.
Or it's blinking.
It's blinking, and it's like it's a cheap Las Vegas hotel all of a sudden.
Yeah,
and they're
checking at the
$100.
circus. You're checking in at the circus with the blinking lights.
Yeah.
Tim, hey, throw your website out there for the people watching so they know who you are. LEDlightsource.com.
It's LEDlightsourceco.com.
That's LEDlightsourceco.com. Hey, folks, this has been brought to you by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Business. Remember our old tagline where lighting means business?
Yep.
Yeah, man. I want to bring that tagline back because this is where lighting means business at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Folks out there on YouTube right now listening, send us some messages on the social media. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Scotty's going to set you up. Say hi to everybody, Scotty, back in Toronto. Oh, he's there. I'm gonna.
Hi.
Okay, you're
Hi.
gone.
Hey, how's it going?
See you later. I turned you off.
That was his high.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks.
That was fun, man.
Cool.